Please use the link below to get the notes, questions, and other videos. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to others for our daily new videos.
We're going to discuss the recent legislations on businesses. Why do we have to discuss the recent legislations on businesses? Because we want to evaluate the impact on how businesses are operating after the apartheid era. So remember, this is the continuation of grade 11 content and business environments. So in particular, this falls under macro environment, of which macro environment, if you still remember, we talk of the surroundings that are totally outside the business, and we check how these surroundings can affect the operation of the business. These legislations, they were established because Black people were somehow oppressed in terms of the rules and regulations that were prevailing before the ANC came into power. If you still remember, ANC came into power in 1994. So now, when ANC came into power in 1994, then they tried by all means to revise the legislation or the legislation to make sure that the legislation is towards the advantage of the Black people or disadvantaged people. Okay, so now legislation, in short, we refer to rules and regulations set by the government. So now in these legislations, we are going to discuss 8 legislations. We're going to discuss Skill Development Act, Labor Relations Act, Employment Equity Act, Basic Conditions of Employment Act, Compensation for Injuries and Disease Act, Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act, National Credit Act, and lastly, number 8, Consumer Protection Act. So now below, or these are the questions that can be asked under these acts. But remember, we are going to split them. We are going to start with Skill Development Act, then we shall discuss up until the last act. So now the impact of recent legislation on businesses. So now the question can come that says, outline or describe or explain or discuss the purpose of all Skill Development Act. You will still remember, when we talk of the Skill Development Act, we talk of the act that has been established so as to enhance the skill of people who are already employed. So this one shows that people who are not already at the workplace, they don't form part of this Skill Development Act. So now we're going to check the purpose of this act. Why is the act being established? What are the objectives of establishing this act? What are the aims of establishing this act? What was the government expecting to achieve when developing this act? So now, number 1, the act was developed so as to enhance the skills of people in South Africa in order to improve productivity. So now when we talk of the productivity, we refer to the rate at which goods and services are being produced, or the manufacturing, how these goods and services are actually being produced. So now this act, remember, from the start I said that these 8 acts were established by what? By ANC after it won the elections. So this act specifically, it addresses issues that are taking place in South Africa. not issues that are taking place outside South Africa. So now the second one, this act invests in education and training of workers. Remember, at different workplaces, you find that some people, yes, they were hired long back with the matric certificates, but now the world keeps on changing. We are living in a technological world now. So now people are not exposed to technology. They encounter challenges when it comes to the production of goods and services. So now to prevent firms from firing people, then the firms were forced to do what? To give them the in-service training. In-service training is a training that you actually get while you are already employed. So now this act also was channeled on education and training of workers. So moving on, this act was put into place so as to improve the chances of getting a job for previously disadvantaged people. Previously disadvantaged people here, we refer to people who are vulnerable. People who are very liable to any attack. So now when we are actually saying that chances of getting a job, and one might ask that, but from the start, you said that the act was established so as to enhance the skills of people who are already employed. Yeah, here when we say chances of getting a job, we mean that moving from one job to the next. So now moving on, this act was also established so as to encourage workers to participate in learning programs. So this act, as I have said earlier, the major aim was to enhance the skills of those workers who were disadvantaged in terms of qualifications and the likes. So now it gives them the insight, training. They don't pay anything. The company is the one that has to contribute 1% of its profits towards to the SETA. But we shall go into details when we get to how SETA is actually being funded. So moving on, we have the redresses imbalances of past through education and training. So now, as I've actually said, in the past, Black people were somehow disadvantaged. So now this act was established so as at least to reduce the education gap between white people and Black people. Remember, in the past, white people used to be more educated than Black people. And also, if you check in the past, most of management positions were only occupied by white people, while the Black people were somehow disadvantaged or sidelined. Then we shall go deeper when we are dealing with broad-based Black economic empowerment. So now moving on, this act was established so as to encourage businesses to improve the skills of their workers. What can be the impact when businesses improve the skills of their workers? It means now the rates or the way goods and services were produced, now production is going to be more advanced because now people will have what new knowledge on how to produce goods and services. Even the understanding of the teamwork now will be more easy. People can integrate well with other people instead of only thinking that production of goods and services is self-centered. Okay, moving on. Number two, discuss or explain or evaluate the impact or positives or advantages of the Skill Development Act on businesses. So in most cases, when the question says give the impact and just says impact, the expectation is that we should take into account the bad and the good of the act. But now here the question is straightforward. It says that we discuss the impact of the positive impact of Skill Development Act on businesses. How is this Skill Development Act affecting the businesses? Is there any growth in businesses after the implementation of Skill Development Act, or there's no growth? So that's what we're actually going to go deeper into to check how this affected the operation of the business. Remember the major aim of operating into a business, just to make profit. Other aims or other objectives, yes, they just come as control variables, but the major aim is to make profit. So now we are going to check if this Skill Development Act really helped businesses to succeed, meaning really helped businesses to attain or collect more profits. So now we are going to check the positive side of it, meaning we are going to check that indeed this Skill Development Act really helped different set of businesses to achieve their mandate of making or attaining profit. So number one, training employees to improve productivity in the workplace. So employees are already trained. They have acquired different set of skills. So now when they produce goods and services, they are going to apply the advanced knowledge, meaning now the approach is going to be totally different from someone who didn't have that much skills. So moving on, it promotes self-employment and Black entrepreneurship. So now self-employment, we refer to what? We refer to the entrepreneurs. And these entrepreneurs in particular, we take into account the entrepreneurs of Black people. So an entrepreneur or an entrepreneurship, we refer to what? Entrepreneurship, we refer to the process of combining all vectors of production to come up with profit. So here, vectors of production, we refer to land, we refer to labor, we also refer to capital. So meaning entrepreneurship entails those three aspects. So now there's no way that production of goods and services can take place without land. And also there's no way that production of goods and services can take place without labor. Labor here, we refer to what? We refer to physical effort or mental effort that can be put into place to produce goods and services. And also remember, under labor, we have different classification of labor. We have skilled labor, unskilled labor, as well as semi-skilled labor. So now an entrepreneur, we refer to someone who's actually not scared of taking any risk. Someone who's a risk taker, someone who's not afraid of losses. That is an entrepreneur. So also this an entrepreneur should be a brave person. Moving on, we have the increase in the return on investment in education and training, or increases the return on investment in education and training. Investment, when we talk of the investment, we talk of the multiplication of money. So now here, but now we say the increase on return investment in what? Education and training. Remember, when the businesses are issuing out or giving out these learnerships to their employees, they're expecting to get something in return. They don't just give out these learnerships because they want to give them out. No, it's because also they want to grow. They know very well that once those people are now having those much skills, they can be able to produce goods and services in an advanced manner. Okay, so now moving on, Workplace discrimination can be addressed through training. Discrimination. Discrimination is when you are judging other people in terms of the color of their skin, in terms of their appearance, on how they dress, in terms of the language, in terms of the age, and many more. So now, at the workplace, or also in terms of the possession of skills. So at the workplace, remember, most of the employees who are much qualified than others, they look down upon those who are not qualified. So now this act helps at least to minimize that gap of discrimination of people who are more educated than those who are not educated. So now these people who were much not educated, now they can at least be close to those ones who are much educated, and meaning now collectively the production of goods and services shall go smoothly. So now moving on to another aspect, we have workplace is used as an active learning environment where employees can gain practical job experience. So meaning now when now these employees are equipped with skills or knowledge, the approach towards the production of goods and services is going to be quite different. Now it's going to be more advanced. So they can also pass that particular skill to other people who didn't even get exposed to these learnerships. So now moving on, we have what? We have businesses could become globally more competitive, increases the number of skilled employees in areas where these skills are scarce. Okay, so now the moment businesses issue out Skill Development Act to its employees, it means that now these employees will be equipped with knowledge or skills, and now they can even produce goods and services using the latest technology. So the moment they can incorporate with latest technology, it means company brands will be more improved. And if the company brands is more improved, it shows that locally that particular company will be recognized. If it's recognized locally, then it can even do business internationally. That is why we're actually saying that business could become globally more competitive. So now moving on to the increase of number of skilled employees. Here, as I said earlier, some of the people were just employed using what matrix certificates. So now they were somehow disadvantaged. But now after acquiring this set of skills, now they can also go out there to market themselves if maybe they no longer want to work for this particular company. But in most cases, when employees have acquired skills, the expectation is to apply such skills into that particular business that offered them the skills. So people who come from rural areas or people who come from poor families or disadvantaged families, they were not even having enough money to fund their fees, especially people from rural areas. In rural areas, if you have discovered, most people in rural areas are such disadvantaged in a lot of aspects. So now moving on, encourages ongoing skill development and learning to sustain the improvement of skills development. These ongoing skills we refer to in-service training. And if you still remember, I said in-service training, we refer to training that is being offered when someone is already employed. So now sustainability, we check the aspects that can last for a longer period of time. So now moving on, this act improves employment opportunities and labor movement of workers from previously disadvantaged groups So here, yes, sometimes you may find that a company can offer out SDA to the employees, but that doesn't necessarily mean that is binding for employees to work for that particular company for their entire life. They can work for that particular company, and at some certain stage, then they can leave and go for a greener pastures. Wherever they will be going, now they will approach life in a different set of manner, because now they will be equipped with skills unlike before when they were previously disadvantaged. Okay, moving on. Broad-based Black economic empowerment complaint businesses can improve their products or service delivery as they employ more skilled workers. So this one of broad-based Black economic empowerment is the act that particular was established for those people who are Black and were from disadvantaged backgrounds. So I'll go deeper when we are dealing with this act. So moving on, we have the negative impact. Remember, if you still remember, I said that the question can just say, discuss the impact of Skill Development Act on businesses. So now, if it says discuss the impact, it means that this word impact engulfs negatives and positives. So, but sometimes you may find the question is straightforward. It says discuss the positive impact of Skill Development Act or any act. Just like this one, it says discuss the negative impact of the skill development on the business operation. If you still remember, I said it earlier that this act was originally established to empower these people who are Black to acquire a different set of skills so that they can produce goods and services in an advanced manner. And when they are now producing goods and services in an advanced manner, it means that also business operation is going to be affected. So now let's check the bad side of this act. Because if you still remember each and every act, I mean, each and every aspect here in life has pros and cons. So even this Skill Development Act, it is bad on the side of the business as well. So now let's study and check how bad it can go. So it increases cost as the process requires large amount of paper work. When we say it increases cost, we mean the expenditures are going to be high on this, because a business, if you still remember, I told you that in order for a business to qualify to issue out Skill Development Act to its employees, it pays 1% of its profits. So now that 1% of the profit is money. If it wasn't issuing out that 1% of profits, it means that 1%, the business maybe was going to use it to engage in production of new products, to engage in expansion, engage in increment of workers' salaries and the likes. So also for a business to qualify to issue out Skill Development Act, it requires a lot of paperwork. It's not something that can take place overnight. So moving on to the next aspect, we are seeing that the implementation of the Skill Development Act can be difficult to monitor and control. Why are we saying that? Some of the businesses can qualify to issue out this Skill Development Act, and they can be given money to finance such training. Then some you find that instead of using such money to finance the training, they diverted the money into their own pockets. So this is what I've actually realized is taking place recently. Most of businesses, bosses, they concentrate on how well they can enrich themselves. not how well they can improve the skills of their workers so that they can attain higher profits. So now also the implementation of this Skill Development Act, it needs SETA, which is the sector training. Remember, for SETA to come there to ensure that your business is really implementing the Skill Development Act. It's not easy. It's not easy. Those follow-ups is not easy. And then the control also is not easy. Why are we saying it's not easy? Because it's time consuming. So moving on to another aspect, skills programs may not always address training needs of employees. Yes, this might be true because you may find that some of the employees, the skills that they were looking forward to enhance is not the one that is actually being provided. Because the employees, they can't choose for themselves the kind of training or the kind of skills that they want to acquire. So now you may find that the skills that Skill Development Act is trying to address, employees already possess such skills. So to them, it will just be the waste of time. So hence, there won't be any impact in terms of the enhancement of such skills. Then the business also, it won't be able to collect that much profit because people still remain with the skills that they were hired with. Okay, so moving on to another aspect, we are saying that skills development levy could be an extra burden to financial struggling businesses. So now this skill development levy, we refer to what? We refer to that amount that businesses contribute to the development, to Skill Development Act. And remember this amount, the business contributed to SETA because SETA is the one that is responsible to monitor the implementation of Skill Development Act. So now, why are we saying this could be a burden? We are saying that this could be a burden to businesses that are not successful in terms of the collection or attainment of profits. So some of the businesses, you find that the profits that they are collecting, it's not enough. That is why you see a lot of businesses here in South Africa. They are stagnant. There's no growth. They can't expand. They can't engage into new products. Why? Because of the what? Because of the lack in terms of collecting much money from customers. So now remember, if you still remember, not each and every business can qualify to take part in this Skill Development Act. Only businesses that are able to have a payroll of 500,000, which is $500,000 on a yearly basis. Those are the only businesses that can qualify. So now you may find a business can only make that $500,000 yearly, and that $500,000 yearly, they take the percentage of it to pay to SETA. Then such businesses won't be able to grow because you may find that's the only amount that they are able to generate. Unlike businesses that can generate more than that, because there are some giant businesses that can generate a lot of money. So moving on, it may be monitored and controlled by government departments that do not have education and training as their key priorities. So this one, in short, you still remember, I told you that SETA is the one that monitored the implementation of the Skill Development Act. So now in that SETA, it is built of different bodies, and of which amongst the bodies in that SETA is what? Government officials. And yes, government officials, normally they are not known of well-deeds, but it's people's perception. It's not yet proven. So now these government officials, most of them you may find that they are not into improving the skill of those people who are already employed, but them, they are thinking of how well they can enrich for themselves. Because if you still remember, I think this is the sickness of Africa. Most African countries, government is always the one that is taking the front seat. So now if the government is not interested, such initiative end up failing, and people, they end up not enhancing their skill, and then businesses end up not being successful, hence the attainment of less profits. So now SETA may not be well organized, and many courses offered by companies may not have unit standards that relate to the course content. So now this one, if you still remember, I said before that SETA is built of different bodies, of which amongst those bodies, the government is the one that is taking the front seat. So now, if the government already, or government officials already are slacking in terms of delivering, or in terms of playing their roles, it means that it will affect also the performance of those ones that are involved in terms of the implementation of this Skill Development Act. So now moving on, we are saying that many service providers that offer training services are not SACWA accredited, meaning they are not legit. They are not legit. And you know, if something is not legit, then that is the sign of danger. It's like a fly by night. So now, if this SETA involve bodies that are not legit, then it means it will have the negative impact on the operation of the business. How are we saying the negative impact? Because remember, for a business to qualify to take part into this Skill Development Act, they pay 1% of their what? Of their profit. So meaning that 1% of the profits will just be waste. Okay, so now moving on, many businesses may not support this government initiative. Yes, as much as I said it earlier, most African economies or African countries, they are led by governments, and governments are everywhere, every corner. You see the government. This like the economic system of South Africa. The economic system of South Africa is a mixed economy, meaning it comprises of market economy as well as centrally planned economy. If at least it was market economy, the government was not going to have that much say. But now, since it's a mixed, the government has that say. That is why you see there's no initiative here in South Africa, or some few of the initiative can take place without government intervention. So now sometimes government intervention is not good, because it is associated with what? With bad deeds. Okay, moving on. Employees are expected to attend learnership during work hours, which could affect the production process or productivity. Remember earlier on I said productivity, we refer to production of goods and services per person. How well one person can produce goods and services. And also, according to Basic Conditions of Employment Act, there are specified hours that a person must work per day. So now, which per day, according to Basic Conditions of Employment Act, a person is expected to work 8 hours. And if they can elapse that 8 hours only with 1 hour, which is 45, which is what? Which is 9 hours per day. So meaning each and every day, a person is expected to work an extra hour as overtime. So now, if now, when I as a person you're expected to work 8 hours and who attend this training for 2 to 3 hours or 4 to 5 hours, it shows that now the company now will be in short of 1, 2, or 3 people to produce goods and services. And that one, it will be affected. The level of goods and services will be affected. The volume that used to be produced in that particular day is no longer going to be the same. It's not going to be different, because now the number of people who was engaged in that production of goods and services has declined. Okay, moving on to another aspect. Costly for businesses to employ a person to implement or manage or control learnership. So now this one of the implementation of the learnership and the controlling of the learnership. Remember I said it earlier, a business doesn't have any say in it. Only the SETA has a say in it, and only the SETA has the final word on how this Skill Development Act should be implemented. So now, if the business, say maybe the business wants to employ the next person to make sure that the monitoring or the control of learnership is taking place, it means that now business has to pay that person money from their own pocket. And if you still remember from the start, I said that businesses do pay 1% of their of their annual profit in order for them to take part in this Skill Development Act. So now, on top of paying that 1% of the profits, now if they pay another person, that this will increase the volume of spending. So now moving on, the time and money spent on improving employee skills is wasted if they leave the business. This one is very painful. Imagine as a business owner or CEO, so you try by all means to improve the skills of your people so that you can attain success. And now, after some people acquired such skills, now they tell you, hey, we are resigning. We are going for cleaner pastures. Imagine the pay. Imagine the time spent there. Imagine the money as well. So that one on its own then will affect even the success of the business. Because now if you train this group, upon the completion of such training, they leave the business. Now also be forced to train other people. So meaning now if you train other people, now it's like now the business will only be engaged in spending training, train this group. When they are done, they leave. You train this group. When they are done, they leave. So that is why we are saying that this one also is somehow money consuming and time consuming. So now we are going to check discriminatory actions according to the Skill Development Act. What's no to this act? That's what this heading says. What the act says no. The act says no to preventing employees from signing for a learnership due to their age or position in the workplace. So now this act, it doesn't only cater for a certain specific group age. It should cater for each and every person, whether young or old. But the person, remember here in South Africa, we have the range of what economically active people that is being considered as between 15 and 64. So now if someone's age falls within that interval, they qualify to take part in this Skill Development Act. But now you see some businesses, even though some people do qualify, they don't give them that chance to do what? To take part in Skill Development Act. But now they'll be looking for their relatives. They'll be looking for their friends. They'll be looking for whoever that is close to them. So now, moving on, we are saying that this act says no to unfair promotion of skills and development training to certain employees. If you still remember in some businesses, you find that the CEO has his favorite people. And then there are people whom he doesn't favor. They are not saying hate, whom he doesn't favor. So now this Skill Development Act enhancement, it should cater for everyone, whether you are being favored by the employee or not. You should be given that platform as well to do what? To acquire such skills, because you are all working for the what? Same company. And at the end of the day, if you all possess such skills, you'll be able to integrate in teamwork. And once you are able to integrate in teamwork, it means that there will be a flow of production of goods and services. Unlike expecting someone to play his role while when I, as a person, you are just seated there, say, oh, when it's not my responsibility to make sure that goods and services are produced. It's the responsibility of the CEO. I'm waiting for CEO to tell me what to do. No, you shouldn't wait for a CEO to tell you what to do. The moment you get to work, go straight to your office. You know your rules. Don't bask under the sun. Don't move from office to office, gossiping or drinking tea. No. What you must do, what you must perform your skills. And then at the end of the day, you do what? You enhance or acquire the skills. And remember, we said the skills shouldn't favor anyone. It should be a fair play. So now moving on, we are saying that this act says no to providing employment services for a gain without being registered as an employer. Meaning here, if a business is not registered, it can't take part in skill development training. So now businesses should be legit so as to take part in this skill development training. But you know, here in South Africa, even if some businesses are not legit or they are not registered, you find that they take part. Why? Because sometimes, somehow, things are not done properly. It's a matter of whom you know, who has that much influence. So there are some businesses that are not legit, but they know people in power, people who can have influence. And such businesses, you find that they take part in SETA or in this skill development training. So now SDA says no to such businesses. So okay, moving on. Furnishing false information in any prescribed document. Some businesses, even when they see actually that they don't qualify, what they do, they provide with fake information. They'll fake the profits that they are making. They'll fake the payroll. If you still remember from the start, we said that in order for a business to qualify for this Skill Development Act, it should be engaged in an annual payroll of $500,000. So you may find some businesses, they don't even attain such profits, or they don't even engage in such payrolls, but now they want to do what? They want to take part in Skill Development Act, not with the mentality of improving the skills of those who are working for them, but because they want that money. Okay, moving on. We have the penalties for businesses that fail to comply, because there are businesses that can qualify to take part in this SETA, but now you find that upon the receivement of such money to finance the training, instead of using that money appropriately, they divert it towards their own pockets. So now let's check what would be the charge if those businesses don't comply according to SETA or SDA expectations. So businesses that do not pay the skill development levy may not offer learnerships or claim grants from the SDA. Meaning businesses that qualify. Yes, you may find businesses can qualify, the paperwork may be compiled, but at the end of the day, if businesses fail to pay 1% of their annual payroll to Skill Development Act or to SETA, then they do what? They do not they do not been offered such opportunity. So now moving on, a labor inspector could order the businesses to stop operating should the business be found guilty of illegal practices. Yes, yes. This one, if you still remember, I spoke about legitimacy. Some businesses are legit, but now you find people who are working for such businesses. They are engaged in different set of illegal practices, things that are not transparent. So if the business is engaging in such aspects that are not transparent, then there will be a charge for that. So now we are going to discuss or check ways in which businesses can comply with the Skill Development Act. Meaning here we are actually going to say yes or merits to Skill Development Act. The Act says yes to the following. Remember, this Act has been established to enhance the skill of those people who are already employed. But those who are not employed, they are actually being sidelined. So now, in order for businesses to comply, in order for businesses to take part in this act, employers who collect pay should register with SETAs. Pay is pay as you earn. So now, if you still remember, there are those employers who are taking the income tax from their employees. So now they submit such tax to SARS. So now here it says that employers who collect pay should register with SETAs. If as employer you are the one in charge of collecting that income tax, it means that you also can have that chance or platform to register with a SETA. So now, moving on, 1% of an employer's payroll has to be paid over to the SETA. So now this one, if you still remember, I've been stressing it a lot. So now moving on to another aspect, businesses should register with SARS, South African Revenue Service, in the area in which their business is classified or in which their business is located. So in each and every province here in South Africa, the South African Revenue Service is there. So now businesses that are not collecting pay as you earn, they are expected to go to close by SARS to pay what? To pay or register to take part in this. Okay, so now moving on, employers should submit a workplace skills plan and provide evidence that it was implemented. But actually we are saying that in order for a business to qualify to take part in this Skill Development Act, they should come up with a schedule of the skills that are lacking in their businesses. And how are these skills going to help their businesses to be successful? Remember, we said from the start, the success of the business rely entirely on collection of profits. So now moving on, businesses with more than 50 employees must appoint a skill development facilitator. Meaning if the business wants to take part in Skill Development Act and people who are nominated to take part are 50, the SETA can't really be dealing with 50 people. They should select the representative, someone who's going to represent them. Also assess the skills of employees to determine areas in which skill development are needed. Assess the skills of employees to determine areas in which skills development are needed. If you still remember from the start, it was said that the company should have a skills plan. How should they be able to schedule out the skills plan? They must check the skills that is lacking in their business. If in their business they lack the finance skills or the skills on how to handle cash, obvious, they should train someone on how to handle cash. Also, if in the business there's a shortage of marketing skills in terms of the promotional brand, also in the same manner, they should make sure that they train people towards what? Towards marketing area. Okay, moving on to another aspect, encourage employees to participate in learnerships and other training programs. This one also in the same manner, we have been stressing it a lot. So now moving on, provide all employees with the opportunity to improve their skills. So a company can only qualify to take part in Skill Development Act if it doesn't practice discrimination. Discrimination, remember, we said it's when there is somehow judgment of people in terms of age, in terms of skills, in terms of the color of skin, in terms of the language. So now each and every person that qualifies to take part in this Skill Development Act should be given that platform, should be given that opportunity, should be given that chance. That's what the Act is saying. So now, if that particular business doesn't discriminate, it gives each and every employee opportunity to improve their skills, then yes, they can be catered for. Okay, moving on. Business should register with the relevant setters. Relevant setters, why are we saying relevant setters? If you still remember, we said that there are setters that have not accredited with South African Communication Authority. They are not registered. Especially nowadays, if you can check, the scamming is taking place a lot. There are people who can just claim to form part of SETA, when in actual fact they are not accredited, and they come to your business and then they try by all means to lure you. You give out money, and then at the end of the day, you end up crying after the loss. So now we are saying that in order for a business to be considered as a complying business in this act, it should be a registered business with an accredited SAQA. Okay, moving on to another aspect, we have a SETA. We are going to check, where is this SETA getting money from? How is it getting money? So if you still remember, before we can even look at some other set of funding, I said it earlier that SETA also collects money from the 1% of annual profits from different set of businesses. So now let's move on and check. So discuss the function of SETA. Okay, this one functions. Now let's look at the functions of SETA. So the roles of SETA is to report to the Director General. They report on what? They report on the progress of those businesses who have applied and who qualified to implement Skill Development Act. So now the SETA will go to the field or on the field to check if these businesses are really able to do what? Are really able to implement such skills as planned, as scheduled by SETA. So now after that, SETA has to go and give a report to the Director General. So now moving on to another aspect, SETA's function also is to promote and establishes learnerships, meaning they promote and they start learnerships. The business only submits the skill plans to SETA. So now SETA is the one that is going to establish these learnerships and make sure that they promote them. Business doesn't promote learnership. Business doesn't establish learnership. Their only mandate or their only role is only to submit the skill plan to SETA, so that SETA can be able to use that schedule of skill plans to establish learnerships. Then at the end of the day, they are able to promote. So now moving on to another aspect, we are saying that SETA collects levies and pays out grants as required. So now the levies that we are referring to a skill development levy, that charge of 1%. That 1% of profits, only SETA is entitled to take that money, not any other bodies. So now moving on to another aspect, we are saying that the function of the SETA is to provide accreditation for skills development facilitators. So now, these skill development facilitators, they are those people who are actually being trained by SETA. And SETA is the one that gives the right to say, okay, when I go to that particular company and check if those people are indeed implementing the skills plan that they have actually submitted to us. Okay, so now also these people, it's not just anybody who can just volunteer to go and say, oh, hey, since I know you, my brother or my sister or my uncle, you're working under SETA, may I just work here, maybe to volunteer, or maybe you can just give me something just for break after working. No, the facilitator should be accredited by the SETA, not the uncle. Okay, moving on to another aspect. So register learnership agreements or learning programs. So this one we have been stressing it a lot. Moving on to another aspect, approve workplace skills plans and annual training reports. So if you still remember, I said that businesses only submit to SETA the skill plans, the set of skills that are lacking in their businesses. And also they must outline that these skills that are lacking in our business are the ones that are delaying us from attaining success. So now, upon the submission of such skills to SETA, then SETA will sit down and then check if such skills are what are really worth taking. So now, after that, if SETA sees that the skills that the businesses have submitted are really worth taking, then they will approve and then they will issue out. They will do what? Then they will establish learnerships and then promote them. So now remember, we also said that SETA is the one that monitors the implementation of Skill Development Act. So now if SETA is the one that monitors the implementation of this act, it means that it also has to give a report. If you still remember the first one, we said that SETA report to the Director General. They just give a report after what? After making sure that they do what? They do follow-ups, they check, they monitor on daily basis or monthly basis or fortnight basis or after 6 months. But they make sure that at the end of the day, they compile a report for the whole year. Okay, so moving on, we are saying that the functions of SETA is to monitor or evaluate the actual training by service providers. So now these service providers we refer to businesses. Remember from the start, I said that some businesses may say that they are going to offer our skill development act, or they are going to enhance the skills of their employees, but upon receiving money, that money now goes straight, or that money is actually now being diverted towards their own pockets. So now SETA is always there to check if such monies that that monies that are meant to enhance the skills of employees, they are not misused. Okay, so now moving on. Also, the function of SETA is to allocate grants to employers, education and training providers. SETA is the one to make sure that they give out money to finance this training. Remember, from the start, I said that the business, for it to qualify to issue out this skill development training, they must first what? They must first attain the profits of half a million, or have a payroll of what, half a million. Then if they have that payroll of half a million, then they have to pay 1% of their profits to what? To the SETA. Then SETA now will be the one to give what? To give money back to these particular businesses to make sure that they improve or they enhance the skills of those who are in need of enhancement of the skills, so as to improve the operation of the business towards success, of which this success is nothing but the attainment of profits. Okay, so moving on to another aspect, we are saying that the function of SETA also is to foresee the training in different sectors of South African economy. So now here, the sectors, we refer to different bodies like primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector, and the likes. So now, in primary sector, remember primary sector here is the sector that is involved in extraction and many more. So under primary sector, nature is taking a form here. So there are those people who are working under primary sector and they want to enhance their skills. So now they shouldn't be sidelined because they are working under primary sector and they're engaged in nature. No, they should also be given that platform to take part in what? In skill development training. So SETA also is there to make sure that even those people who are working under primary sector, those people who are working at the mines, who want to improve their skills, they are given that chance. Also, it is ensuring that those people who are involved in crops, there are businesses that are involved in growing crops and rearing of livestock. Also, they're given a chance to improve their skills, because now if you check here in South Africa, primary sector is the major contributor of GDP. They contribute more towards GDP, and of which GDP is the vector that can help us to measure whether the economy is growing or the country is growing. And remember, GDP gives out economic growth, of which economic growth we only consider the improvement in terms of production of goods and services by firms or businesses. So now also remember, I also touched on secondary sector. Secondary sector also, this is the sector that is engaged in processing goods and services or manufacturing goods and services. So now there are those people who are working in factories, and you find that these people, they have been working in factories for many years. They need also to enhance their skills. So now a SETA will make sure that even those people who are involved in factories, they are given a chance also to enhance their skills. Not always meaning if maybe they're machine operators, they remain machine operators. No, they should also enhance their skills so that also they become managers of tomorrow. Or those ones who are engaged in cutting cloth, they should also enhance their skills so that at the end of the day also they are sitting on machinery and fixing those cloths. So now moving on to another sector, which is tertiary sector. So now this one of tertiary sector, it is involved in services. So now here we are talking of the white collar jobs, of which it is much believed that in these white collar jobs, that's where the enhancement of skills should take place, which is not true. Each and every sector, people need to enhance their skills. As I have explained earlier, that under primary sector, that's where most of the South African GDP comes from. Meaning that's where most of the South African are employed. So now if that's where most of South African are employed, it means that they should also focus on that primary, not only on white collar jobs like bonuses, education, and the likes. So now also those people who are involved under healthcare facilities and also education, they should be given a chance also to enhance their skills. Okay, so now moving on, we are saying that another function of SETA is to develop skill plans in line with the national skill development strategy. So now this one of national skills development strategy is a technique that the government has put into place so as to enhance the skills of South Africans nationwide. So now the SETA also, whenever it evaluates the skill plans from the service providers of businesses, it should also compare the national skill development strategy or technique that is in place for that particular year. So they shouldn't only check, okay, the business wants to improve this set of skills, why this one of national skill development strategy doesn't cater for such a set of skills. These skill plans scheduled by the service providers or businesses, it should form part of the national skill development strategy. In short, I'm saying that these skill plans, it should fall under the list of the skills that South Africa is aiming to achieve. So now moving on, SETA also draws up skills development plans for their specific economic sectors. Remember, economic sectors are, I said, we have primary, we have secondary, as well as tertiary. So now here, the SETA has its target sector. The target sector is the sector that maybe they want to improve. So them in that particular area or in that particular province, they will check the need of the skills. And then if they find, okay, we need these skills, also they must identify the sector. If maybe there's a need to improve the skills in tertiary sector, yes, they'll go for it. But now also if they see that there's a need to improve the skills under primary sector, also they must go for it. Remember, as I said earlier, the primary sector is the one that has employed a lot of South Africans. Here we have the mines, we have agriculture, we have fishing, and the likes. So now here, the SETA normally draw up the schedule or plan for their target sector. So now this target sector, it will depend according to province or according to what, or according to the municipality. Because now in different, as I have already said it, in different provinces and different municipalities, people do what? People do possess a different set of skills. So now moving on to another aspect, we are saying that this SETA provide training or programs for skill development facilitators. So now this one we have already discussed it. For sure now it's becoming monotonous. So now let's move on to another aspect. Okay, moving on to another aspect. SETA pay out grants to companies that are complying with the requirements of the Skill Development Act. So now this one also we have discussed. So now Also, it promotes learnership programs by identifying suitable workplaces for practical work experience. Remember this one, I told you that once the business or the service provider has submitted the skill plan to the SETA will evaluate such a skill plan. Then after the evaluating such skill plan, then they do what? Then they'll check if such skills are worth taking. So now, how are these SETA funded? This one I've already explained, but now let me get into it. Skill development leave is paid by employees. 80% is distributed to the different SETA and 20% is paid into the National Skills Fund. Meaning from that 100% that companies have paid to issue out skill development authority, 80% will go to different SETAs, while 20% it will be what? It will remain in the SETA's pool so as to finance the enhancement of people's skills. So now also SETA gets funding from donations and grants from the government or from the public. Whoever wants to donate to the SETA, they are welcome. That's how SETA makes money. Also, the surplus funds from government institutions. Some of the institutions from the government, they may be given the budget, but we find that after the fiscal year, they are still remain with some money they didn't spend. Then such money, they'll give it to SETA. So also funds received from rendering their services. Whenever SETA render services, they get paid. So now with that money that they get paid, they can also use to finance skill development. So now we are actually going to explain the National Skill Development Strategy and the Women Resource Development Strategy. So now skill development strategy and women resource strategy, they are more or less the same. Now we are actually going to check, or we are going to compare how they do differ. So now this one of a skill development strategy, it encourages good quality training, while this one addresses skill shortages in South Africa. So now moving on to the second one, this one, it provides for the participation of government, organized and business labors, while this one aims at achieving faster economic growth. Remember, economic growth, I said, is nothing but the improvement in terms of production of goods and services by different businesses or firms. So now also under NSDS, we are seeing that it improves social development through economic development. Economic development here, we check the growth or improvement of standard of living of the households or people or the inhabitants of that particular people. So here there are a lot of vectors that can tell us whether this economy is what developed or not. So now here we can check the poverty line, we can also check the death rate, we can also check the birth rate, we can also check the life expectancy, can also check the fertility rate and the likes. So now here it says that this one helps to alleviate poverty. When you alleviate poverty is when you get rid of poverty. So now also we are saying that this sector indicates how sector training authority should use the money allocated from the skill development levy. So I mean this one, it is associated with how well money is being spent. It actually check if this money is misused or used properly. So now under HRDS, it shows what? It shows short-term and long-term workforce skills. They check the short-term skills and then the long-term skills. So now remember, some of the employees, they only need short-term skills and others, they need the long-term skills. This ones of short-term skills can be those people who already attend some qualifications. Now they just want to some additional qualifications. While this one of long-term, you may find they don't even have qualifications. the qualification that they have is only birth certificate. Yeah. Okay. So now moving on, we are saying that NSDS, it improves the access to training programs, while this one of HRDS improve the supply of skills. So this one, it checks whether people are able to access the training, whether those people who really qualifies to take part in this training, they do take part, while NSD only check what the supply of such skill, to check that indeed this skill or value should be given to these people. Okay, so now lastly but not the least, NSDE builds training centers. This one, it builds training centers. If there are needed training centers there, they make sure that they build them. But if there are training centers that are needed, they also make sure that maybe they find the venue so that such training can take place. So now, while this one of HRDS, it really take part into making sure that the participation in a lifelong training take place by the employees. So now I think at this juncture, we have explained what what are the differences or distinction between the national skill development strategy and the human resource development strategy, taking into account setters. So now, please, when you are alone, make sure that you go through whatsoever that we have discussed to check if you really understand. So now, in the next lesson, we are going to discuss Labor Relations Act. And this Labor Relations Act is the act that is normally taking the relationship between those who are able to hire and others and those who are actually being hired. Meaning this one, it addresses the relationship between the employer and the employee. So now, at this juncture, I would like to say thank you very much.